gentleman, then running mate Bawumia, now vice president and flag bearer of the NPP. Let's hold him to the same standards he held others to. So let's come into the studio. Kabiru, I'll walk you through some highlights I picked from there. So what has the NDC done? What do they have to show with Mahama as head of the economic management team? His words, not my words. Head of the economic management team for 4 years and president for another 4 years. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to give each person a trial and error situation where you must serve as vice and serve as president. So let's get that clear. He mentioned as head of the EMT. That's what he said, which means his position was no different. Then he talks about money at the disposal of the government. In fact, he talks about the fact that the Mahama administration at a point had 12 times the resources that the erstwhile administration had had. Let's walk through what this administration has had. You say, to whom much is given, much is expected, much is required. You've borrowed almost 500 billion Ghana cedis. That is, in sum, more than any other administration has done. In fact, our debt at the time when the NDC was handing over hovered around 122 billion. Now we all know where it is. You've had more oil wells added to our oil streams. COVID-19 funds amounted to about 21 billion Ghana cedis. Add to all of this, are you aware that the current prices of cocoa have hit a high on the back of some diseases in other parts of the world? Cocoa is selling. Many people are not aware of this. It's selling at record rates currently. If you look at what this administration has had versus what the previous administration had, who then has had more resources in terms of borrowing, in terms of COVID-19 that you lament about, which you earned 21 billion Ghana cedis from, in terms of all the resources that have been pumped in, and now the IMF program? He says, if you have more fertilizer but you have a poor harvest, then you are likely not a good farmer. I don't know what you make of all this.
Yeah, so the vice president was clear that the then president and also former vice president was head of the EMT and president for 4 years. And he was asking him to account for such period. So it wasn't only in reference to the fact that he was the head of the EMT. That said, he said, and clearly so, to whom so much is given, so much is expected in return. For this government, I can't, with a snap of finger, list a number of things that were never done, and that can speak to the money that was received by the government. For instance, if every year $1 billion, convert that to Ghana cedi, is used to service your excess capacity payment, you have to take it from that money you are getting.
I see.
Okay, if...
do we still have excess capacity?
We have.
We do?
We still have excess capacity.
Wow. It's interesting you say that, Ghana, and it's worthy of mention because we've been told that for about 2 years now we've not had excess capacity that, in fact, you know, we supply to other countries. And you know that basically when you look at our composition, you're saying we still have excess capacity.
That we still have excess capacity for which payment is made by the government, and government is even concluding the renegotiation of the IPPs to do away with some of these excess capacity payments. Okay, installed capacity of power, independent power generators is visited on the government, even though some of them are not producing to full capacity. In any case,
if you have excess capacity, and we've spoken about this for years, for a group that wants to harness the economy on thriving industry and business, what would you do with that excess capacity?
Probably you would want to do, but the problem with the excess capacity is that the cost of production is not even friendly to the business community. You have to find a way of having a mix that will bring down the cost of energy in order that you give it to businesses so that they can produce, and also you'll be able to get some revenue. Even to export power to Cote d'Ivoire, our power exporter is sometimes even more expensive than the power they generate. So you cannot sell. So this the problem with this excess capacity is that we generated power which is so expensive that even to sell it in the market is so expensive, no one is willing to buy because we entered into agreement that were not, if you like, that did not make economic sense. So that's one.
So you'd rather hold the power than sell it and make the difference and maybe add it to your liabilities in terms of paying off your liabilities.
If you do a business and you make a net loss, it's better not doing that business.
Okay.
So if I have a phone, I have to sell it and I have to probably make a loss on the sale because the one to take it doesn't think it's a scrap. I'll better keep it.
But if you're going to pay that same amount anyway, this would offset part of your cost, right?
But there's also the generation cost. So if it's offset, what about the cost of transportation? What about the cost of transaction? Who pays for that? Okay, so sometimes you may have it, but it will not make sense to sell it because of the situation you find yourself. So sometimes that's a problem. The government can also account for the fact that for the first time, more than 11,000 kilometers of roads have been constructed. We have in Sawam ongoing. You have seen those who have traveled on this particular road, you see the massive work ongoing. That is part of the money. The government has also employed up to 1 million people in the public sector. Those people have to be paid, including those already on the payroll. That is the money being used. The government has also constructed more railways than any government. That is part of the money. 18 district hospitals, 20 polyclinics have been completed. And also we have Agenda 111 ongoing, over 100 of them. That is part of the money. So for any person to say that this government has not used, we have more fish landing sites than any other government has constructed. That is part of the money. We have constructed more interchanges than any other government has constructed. That is part of the money. So this government can clearly account for the money that has been received, the development that the Ghanaian people have also received in return for that money. It is a case that when you receive so much and you cannot account for that, that is where the problem begins. So the Vice President, even at his Kasua lecture, Yesu Krum, it was clearly an account for the money that the government received through borrowing or revenue generated.
All right. So hold for me. Let me bring in Kofi Ajay. But before I do so, Ghana, I'm going to leave this one to you. I'm not going to do the work for you today. I want you to send me messages because Dr. Tiah Mahama is saying all the money, the 500+ billion, it went into your roads, for example, the 11,000 kilometers plus that purportedly has been brought to bear. Have you felt the impact of those roads? He talks about Agenda 111. We know it's in the offing. I don't think we can even use that as a metric because most of them are nowhere near completion. So how do you even use them as a metric? But he also talks about railways. I don't know how many of them. I know there's a plan to get some of them into the country from Poland, I believe. But are your rails working? And how, from where I sit, I would ask myself how that has impacted our economy. A good rail network impacts the economy. Send your messages. I want to know from you out there. But